Hi, everyone. This is Elizabeth Graham from Wilson Tool. I want to welcome you to the latest webcast in our free webinar series, Is the SmartMark Printer Right for You? In our webinars, our goal is to bring you expert solutions to common sheet metal manufacturing challenges in a convenient online format. Please note that today's event is being recorded, and you will be able to download the recording a day or so after this event. Also note that due to privacy reasons, the attendee list is not displayed. If you experience difficulties during the WebEx session, you can contact WebEx technical support at 1-866-229-3239. Also, as part of a large audience, you will be in a listen-only mode throughout the presentation. However, if you have questions for our presenter, there will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So we encourage you to submit questions anytime throughout the presentation by using the Q&A box to the right of your screen. Just type into the box and hit send. Please choose all panelists in the send to list, or your question may not be addressed. To submit a question when you're in full screen mode, just hover over the green floating toolbar that's at the top of the screen and select the question mark icon. In addition to myself, I'd like to introduce Vanessa Greer, who will be co-hosting with me today. We'll be sorting through your questions as they come in throughout the presentation. Also helping out with Q&A is Glenn Schuldes, who's one of our applications engineers. Now I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, John Johnson, who's the product manager for the punching division at Wilson Tool International. John is going to be presenting about SmartMark. Any questions that aren't answered today can be sent to John at john.johnson@wilsontool.com. With that said, I'll now turn the presentation over to John.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. At the end of today's webinar, my hope is that you're going to get enough information to be able to answer this question. Is SmartMark a part marking solution for me? Some of the topics we're going to cover today is SmartMark overview, SmartMark setup, the process steps to create a job, programming, printing on sheet metal, and what comes with the printer. So what is SmartMark? SmartMark is a wireless inkjet printer designed by Wilson Tool to fit in the turret of a thick turret punch press. In talking with our customers like yourselves, we identified that there's a lot of part marking going on out there, and people are using a lot of different methods. But there was room for another solution, one that might be more dynamic, using the inkjet and inside of the machine. So we went to work to develop the SmartMark. So to get started, what I'd like to do to put us kind of all on the same level of understanding, I'm going to go ahead and show you the promo video for SmartMark. It'll give us all a basic overview and understanding of what it is and what it can do. So I'm going to go ahead and start that now. You may experience a little flicker and delay before it starts, but it will be up momentarily. Just there we go. Okay, so now we've all had in the video we all saw kind of a general overview of the SmartMark, what it does, and some of the possibilities of things you can do with it. So now we're going to get into a little bit more detail. Before we do, we have a poll question. And throughout the webinar today, we'll have a few poll questions to throw at you to just better understand our audience and what your marking thoughts are. So first question we have up is, how are you marking your parts today? So if you would take a moment and answer one of the options down below, we'd certainly appreciate it. We'll have the results here momentarily and we'll share them. But we have seen where people are using markers and pens to mark on the sheet for different things, and paper labels. And some use scribe tools and stamping tools to stamp numbers into the sheet. Or maybe you're not marking at all. But we can take this feedback and give us a better idea of our audience and what everybody's activities are. It should be up just in a moment. We're just waiting for them results. There we go. So looking at how are you marking your parts today, we can see there's a majority using paper labels, a majority of using scribe tools. Just a few are not marking, and some marker pens, but the majority are the paper labels and scribe. And definitely, I think the SmartMark can offer you some more opportunities to do those same things in a different way. So let's move on. So what can you print with it? The print functionality of SmartMark is you can do any alphanumerical text. It also has a time and date feature on it where you can print the month, day, year, and the time on the sheet when it went through the punch press. You can do barcodes, a type 36 or 128. Or you can also do a sequential counter that goes up by 1 and starts at any number that you started at. You have an option of 3 font styles: Arial, Courier, New, and Lucida Council. And you have an option of 8 font sizes that you see here. Now, these are not scale in this presentation, but it gives you a bit of an idea of the spread of the different fonts that you get. What SmartMark does not print is graphics. So if you were looking for something to print, a picture, bitmap, something like that, you could not do it with SmartMark. SmartMark is text printers only. So we have another poll question here. To get a little more information again, is what type of information are you most interested in printing? Is it text, part numbers, process information, things in that nature, or a timestamp? You want to know when that part was made, or barcode to help you easier sort and pull parts, or maybe it's lines like bend lines and locate lines and things like that. So we'll take a moment, give a minute here to answer that question, and we'll get the results here shortly. Obviously, with text, there's a number of different things. Basically, you're unlimited with the text option as to what you can print. And it allows you to put process information for downstream operations and things like that. And the timestamp can be very handy if you are looking to manage quality control and things like this and throughout your day. So we should have the results here just in a moment, and we'll see where everybody is at on that. Okay, there we are. So it definitely, the primary interest for marking is the text. And then it's kind of split evenly between the rest. So again, the SmartMark being a text printer, that again, it can be a good solution for all those things. So, all right, we're going to move on. Thank you. Let's talk a moment about SmartMark keys features. It works in thick turret, hydraulic, or electromechanical punch presses. Basically, your punch press needs the ability to have a controlled stroke to stroke the printer to a set height above the sheet, and it needs to be able to hold it down. So that is the functionality that you need to have. It's available in C-Station only. It is powered by a lithium-ion battery that you see pictured in the lower right corner here, and it uses a replaceable ink cartridge also pictured in the lower right corner. It has Wi-Fi communication for file transfer, and it has a push button control panel and LED status light you see here. The status lights will let you know what the condition of your battery is, whether the printer is turned on, and what the Wi-Fi and communication status is. You have an option of 4 key options of 0, 90, 180, and 270 degrees. The printer, this is important to note here, the printer only prints in one direction. So it's important that you orient the tool in the direction in which you want to print. And so you have 4 different options in which to do that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the SmartMark setup. Step 1 for your setup is you're going to unpack your kit, and everything you see here comes in a SmartMark kit. There's a startup guide, a quick startup guide that'll come with it, and that'll be the first thing you want to do and take inventory that everything is there before you move on. Step 2, you're going to install the battery and ink cartridges. And as you see in the lower right corner, they simply slide and snap in. It literally takes seconds to install them. Step 3, turn on the printer. And so you'll push the power button you see pictured in the lower right, and you'll start the printer up. It'll go through a startup cycle. It takes about 30 seconds. Then you're going to print air from the printer. Your printer is shipped with no ink in it. So you'll push the purge button 6 to 10 times to push ink through the printer. And when you get a steady stream coming out, it's ready to print. Lastly, you'll test your printer. And you don't have to put it in the machine to do this. You can do it as you see pictured here. You push the top button of the printer to activate, and then bring the printer down within a 1/4 inch of the sheet, and then move in the direction you want to print. And you can test the printer to make sure everything is working. It will come with a default program inside of it ready to print. Then you're going to set up your wireless network. Each SmartMark comes with a wireless router that is pre-configured to communicate with SmartMark. So there's nothing to do except plug it into a 110 outlet, and it's ready to communicate with the SmartMark printer. And lastly, you're going to install your SmartMark Writer software that comes with each kit. So that's basically the setup. So let's talk a moment about the process steps to create a job. Step 1 is you're going to create a machine NC program using the current software. We recommend you always do your printing before you're punching. There's several reasons for this. Number 1, the sheet is never going to be as clean as it is when you first put it in the machine, and that's going to yield you the best result. The cleaner the material, the better the results. And number 2, if you are using forms in your sheet, if you're going to punch forms, you don't want to risk running the printer into the forms. And lastly, by printing first, you're going to give adequate time for the ink to dry before you begin punching and maybe introducing oils and other contaminants. So you always want to do your printing first and then your punching. Step 2, create printing program using the SmartMark Writer software. And I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of that in a moment. So you would next create your SmartMark Writer program. Step 3, then you're going to send your program to the machine and the printer. And this is important to note that these are separate machines. There are programs. There's no connection between your punching program and the printing program. Step 4, load the printer in the machine and key it appropriately for the direction in which you're going to print. Step 5, run a sample to inspect. It's always a good idea to run a sample on a new program just to make sure everything is as you want it. And step 6, you're complete. So those are very simple steps to actually creating a print job in your punching cycle. Obviously, it could vary a little bit different on depending on how you operate, but those are kind of the general steps. Let's watch Glenn in a video actually go through most of those steps. He's not going to create a machine program, but you'll get an idea of real time of what that all takes. So I'm going to go ahead and start that video to watch Glenn. All right. So that video showed a pretty realistic view of, the steps, and obviously that was a small sampling. Your programs would be bigger and your process bigger than that. But basically, that is the process of printing on the sheet metal, creating the program. So, all right, we're going to talk a little bit about programming. First, let me walk you through a few of the SmartMark Writer features. So the SmartMark Writer is the name of the software that comes with your printer. And the SmartMark Writer comes with, as I mentioned, with every printer, and there's no license required. So you can install it on multiple computers. It has a simple install wizard, and it's compatible with Windows XP 7 and 8. And it uses the Windows filing naming convention. So basically, you'll be able to give your programs any name that you'd like. You can store print jobs on any drive, and it supports up to 10 different SmartMark printers. Each SmartMark printer has its own IP address, and so inside of the software, you can set up a printer to have an IP, you can give it a name, and then when sending programs to the printer, you select the printer you want to send it to so that you don't inadvertently send it to the wrong printer. So I'm right now going to give you just a real quick SmartMark Writer demonstration of the software. And if you just bear with me a moment, I've got to change Windows here. And a couple of flashes, and then it should come up. There you go. So what you're looking at is the desktop of the SmartMark Writer software. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to walk through all the features and icons. But what I'm going to do is just try to show you a simple example of what it might look like doing a part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a part number. So I'm going to click the T icon, which is the text icon. And it brings up the text menu window. And in the text string, I'm going to put part 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I have an option of choosing which font style I want. I'll pick the Courier New. And then I can change the size. And I'll change that to size 18. Click OK, and there you see it on the screen. The 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what it would print. And you'll note a yellow scale on the screen. This gives you an approximate idea of the length of the print and what it's going to be. If you had to fit it into a space, this would give you an approximation of what that is. Now, just to show you, if I wanted to change that, if I double-click, it will open up the window again, and I can go ahead and change the font size. So I just changed it now to 26, and so you can see that. Now let's say that I want to have a barcode that represents that part number for scanning. So again, I click on the barcode icon, and up came the text menu window. And I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the left, you have a set of menus that I can choose a type 39 or 128 barcode. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 139. I can choose the size of the bar, and I'm going to make that 36 just to kind of exaggerate it. And there's another feature called narrow bar, and basically what that does is spread the bars apart if you raise the number on that. And if you had some blurring or something going on, you could spread the bars apart to give a little more definition. I'm going to go ahead and leave that at 1. On the right side, I have the text options. I can choose the size of my text. So the text is going to appear underneath the barcode. If I didn't want it to, I would choose 0 for a size, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I want it centered on the barcode, so I'm going to leave it centered. So now I click OK, and there's my barcode, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, I want to put the time and date in which it is being processed. So I'm going to click the calendar and clock icon. And here you have an option to format it any way you want. The default is month, day, year, hours, minutes, seconds, and the time of day, AM or PM. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Again, I can choose the different font, and I can choose the size of the font for the timestamp. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I click OK, and there you see the date and the time. And this operates off the process clock on the printer, so it's live. So it will record the time in which this was printed. Okay, now I'm going to show you real quick. Let's say I wanted to do another part, it was the same, it just had a different part number. If I just highlight these green and use the copy and paste feature, so I just clicked on copy and I'm going to click on paste, and it gives me an option to how many copies I want to make. So I can make 2, and I want to put it after my last print event. and I click OK, you can see 2 more copies were added to the screen. Now, if I double-click on that, I can go in and make that, let's say, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I can double-click on the barcode and do the same. And now I have a new part. So that can save you a little time saver to save you some typing and programming time. Lastly, I'm just going to quickly show you doing a bend line. If I wanted to do a bend line with text, the line is actually a text. It's the underscore key. Oops, I need to click on the window. So I'm going to use underscore key, create a line, and I'm going to type bend up 90 degrees, put a line on the other side. Now, again, I can choose the size of the font, the type of the font, and the size of the font. So let's just go large this time. And you can see it's off the screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in and shrink it down so I can see it. So there I've just created a line with text. And that's how you might do it if you want to create some kind of a locate line. It's really that simple. Now, let's say my job is finished. What I do is I can save the job using the disk here, the disk icon, and I can save it anywhere I want. Or I can send it to the printer. And to do that, I would simply push this icon with the arrow, and it would send it to the printer, and you would get a message saying transfer is complete. So that's a very simple demonstration of the SmartMark Writer software. So all right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit now, talking about programming, let's talk a little bit about nesting. Static nesting, as I've just put a simple description here, it's usually a select set of parts programmed in a sheet. You might do kitting where you run all the parts for a certain assembly in a sheet. Program is typically stored and will run exactly the same way again and again. So you create a program, store it away, and call it up to reuse it each time you do that job. And static nesting is really a good fit for SmartMark because that's the way it operates. The way that you create your program is you create your print events in SmartMark in the order in which you're going to do them in the punch press. Then you store that program away, call it up, and you're going to run it exactly the same way the next time you do it. Dynamic nesting, it's a random variety of parts programmed in the sheet, possibly to maximize material usage. The layout is likely to change often or even every time you do a run, which means you would have to generate a new SmartMark program every time that you would run a dynamic nested job that is new and you've not done before. And for this reason, SmartMark may not be a good fit if you do a lot of dynamic nesting and changing of your runs. So because of that, Wilson Tool is and will work with any nesting software company interested in adding SmartMark functionality to the software. We know that that's the tool that you mostly use every day, and you'd like to be able to create both programs in one. So we are and will be working with more suppliers to add SmartMark to the software. Currently, we are working with Radan, and Radan will have a SmartMark add-on available very soon. So if you're a Radan software user, good news, there will be a SmartMark add-on available for your Radan software where you can create the printing job inside of your CAD software, nesting software. So if you are using Radan, contact our sales rep, let them know that if you're interested in the SmartMark. If you're not using Radan, please, we encourage you to contact your software representative and tell them that you're interested in using the SmartMark and you'd like to have your nesting software. We will be glad to work with any of them, so feel free to give them my contact information. We have another poll question following that, and that is, which nesting method do you most often use? Is it the static or dynamic? Or maybe you seldom nest parts. So I appreciate if everybody take a moment to answer that question, and we'll get the results here shortly. All right. So you can see there's definite good fit with the static, obviously, with the SmartMark, because you're not going to be doing a lot of programming. Create it one time and then reuse it again. But if you're, the dynamic, if the need is great enough, then it can be done. It's not impossible. It's we have the results up, and it looks like static is the primary, with dynamic not too far behind. And a few of you don't do nesting. So, all right. Well, for the good news for you for the static is the SmartMark is definitely a good fit for that type of operation. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the machine program. This, and what I'm talking about is your NP program for punching. The machine program for SmartMark is exactly the same as a program that would run a wheel tool in a straight line. And each one line would equal a print event. So if you're familiar with using the Wilson wheel and programming for that, you're going to program the SmartMark exactly the same way. But for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with that, basically it's going to be different with every software. But basically what needs to happen is, using your existing software, you're going to program it to go to the start point for the print event. Then you're going to program it to stroke to about 0.78 millimeters above the sheet. Then you're going to have it hold it there. Then you program a linear move that is longer than your print event. And when the tool is retracted after that, it's going to jump to the next line of programming, and then you repeat this process and move it to its next location. So however your machine or your software, whatever it needs to do that, that's the process that needs to happen for SmartMark to work. It's really quite simple. The SmartMark has a proximity sensor on the end of it that will sense when it's close enough to sheet and begin to expel the ink. So that part of it all is automatic. If you just do these 4 steps, that's all it's required to print. Let's talk a minute about printing on sheet metal, because applying ink to sheet metal is much like paint. It's affected by the material surface. So material type and finish, surface oil will influence the printing results. And barcodes tend to be the most impacted due to the need to be clear definition to read them. And this is why, if you're anybody that's going to purchase a SmartMark printer, we will request metal samples from you, and we'll run samples and send it to you so you can see the results before you commit to purchasing and make sure that they meet your expectation. Now I have some examples of what the printing looks like on different materials. Right now you're looking at a sample of galvanized, and you can see that it's very clear and quite dense. Next we have a piece of stainless, and the results are basically the same on this piece. And now we have a piece of brushed aluminum, and it appears lighter, even though it was printed with the exact same settings that the other two were, and that's because the ink is falling in the crevices of the brush finish, and it loses some of its density. Now you're looking at a piece of galvanneal, and galvanneal is a material, as you know, used to adhere paint. It's made to be absorbent, so it tends to have more bleeding and blurring. Now you'll note on here that it says standard printing. This sample was printed in the standard mode of the printer. The printer has 2 modes, standard and draft. And in the draft mode, the printer will put down half as much ink. And here's an example of that same thing done in draft mode on the same material. And you can see with less ink, you have much less of the bleeding and blurring going on. But on these type of materials, barcodes may not be feasible on these type of materials. But again, that's why we'll run a sample for you, and you can test that out in the pre-sale process. Now let's talk just a little bit about SmartMark ink. Each cartridge comes with 50 milliliters of ink, and everybody asks, how much can I print with that? And to be honest, I can't answer that question. It's a relative to how much and how big that you print. I can tell you that 50 milliliters is above average for an inkjet printer, but the exact amount based on what you're going to print, we can't answer that for you. It is a solution-based ink that is resilient and waterproof, and it takes about 30 to 90 seconds to dry, depending on the humidity and the temperature. And the ink is primarily intended for utility printing. It is not to replace silkscreen, Silkscreen is a pigment type of ink, which is much different. And the intent of the SmartMark is not to do that. Not that you can't try, and if you can live with the difference in results, and then maybe it can. But it wasn't intended to do that. And it comes in black only. So there are no other colors available at this time. Lastly, let's talk about what comes with your printer. Everything you see pictured here comes in your kit. The printer, the batteries, and the ink and software will come in this plastic case that is filled with anti-static foam to protect it from any static while shipping. And then everything else will come in a secondary box. Inside of there, you get the SmartMark printer and stand, as you see pictured here. You'll get the software CD, as I mentioned. You're going to get 2 SmartMark batteries. SmartMark, you're going to get 1 ink cartridge. You'll get the charger for the battery, a Wi-Fi router, an Ethernet cable in case you don't have Wi-Fi from your computer to the router. You'll get a flush cartridge that is used to evacuate ink if you're going to take it out of service for 30 days or more. You're going to get a spray bottle of ink remover and 150 of the printhead wipes. These are special lint-free wipes that you can use to clean the printhead without clogging. A tube of hand cleaner that is water-based, so it makes it very easy to get ink off your hands. And a box of disposable gloves, which we recommend whenever you're working or managing with the ink. And lastly is the price. The SmartMark kit, everything that you see here is $8,900. Replacement ink cartridges are $95. So that covers pretty much the product there. So I'm going to open it up for questions. Let's see. So feel free to continue to send in questions even as we're talking and answering questions. That's absolutely fine. So how many, one question, do you have any information on printing on oils and sheet? Oil on the sheet, again, that's a relative as to how much oil on the sheet. What I can tell you is we've tested it with the different mill oils that come from the suppliers, and it does vary. And in looking into this, we've found that you can order your material with light, medium, or high oil. I can tell you the less oil, the better. In the light applications, it will print, but depending on the material and depending on the oil, the bleeding will vary and adhesion of the ink will vary. So again, that's one of the things about inkjet printing, and it really has nothing to do with SmartMark or any other inkjet printing. You are trying to apply the ink to a surface, and adhesion and all those are relative to the quality of that surface. One question is, will refillable ink cartridges be available? Possibly. Right now, I mean, they're a special design just for the SmartMark, so we don't have that availability, but possibly. Why is the dynamic nesting not an ideal scenario for the printer? Really, that's your determination. I'm not saying that it can't be used for dynamic nesting. It just will require more programming possibly on your part because each run that you do needs programming. Whereas static nesting, typically you would program it once, store it, and run that same job again and again without programming. But it will work with dynamic nesting. There's no problem there. It's just a matter of whether it fits your operations with the programming time. Can it be used in an index station? Yes, it can. And that gives you a lot of flexibility with the print direction. If you do have an auto index station to use it in, the keying really becomes a non-factor. You can basically print in any direction that you want to rotate it in. Is SmartMark available in Europe or only in U.S.? Currently, it is only available in U.S. and Canada. We are going through the process of getting it approved for exporting into other countries. So it will be available in Europe soon. Can you print logos? No, you can only print text. So you cannot do any kind of a graphic or bitmap. Question has been asked, how resistant is it to solvents? The ink is not resistant at all to any kind of solvents. It will remove it. So if it's a solution-based solvent, it will take the ink right off. After print on sheet metal, can we run time saver on the back of the part without affecting the print? If you're talking about running it just on the bottom, it should not affect it as long as it doesn't create an enormous amount of heat. Obviously, if you're running on the top, it's going to more than likely remove your printing. How is the ink for UV rays? It is resilient, but like anything, it will over time will take its toll on it, but it will withstand UV. Yes, will it print on plastic sheet stock? Yes, it actually works very good on the PVC film on the sheets. It shows up quite well there. Question, is there a die that comes with it? Yeah, it comes. The stand for the printer is actually a die. So it's a 2-inch station die that's cupped out to hold the printer, and you can put that right in the machine with the printer. Question has been, can you bring in a drawing in the SmartMark software? No, you cannot do that. SmartMark Writer is not a CAD program. For all purposes, it's a simple text editor. So it has no CAD capabilities, and it does not have an option to import files. Question, will the ink leave any residue after wiping off? Typically not. If you're using some kind of a solution cleaner to wipe it off, say alcohol or lacquer thinner, typically it will remove everything. Again, all these things are somewhat material specific, so you might see different results on different materials, so you need to keep that in mind. Okay. All right, that's going to kind of the end of our questions. That's going to conclude our webinar. So I hope that you were able to walk away and ask that question, is SmartMark a marking solution for you? So I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth now.
All right, thanks a lot, JJ. And I want to thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. For those of you who still had questions that weren't answered, or if you have any more questions on the ideas presented in this webinar, please contact your Wilson Tool sales engineer, or you can visit us on our website at wilsontool.com. You can also reach John directly at john.johnson@wilsontool.com. Or if you have more general questions, you can email us at marketing@wilsontool.com. We'll be sending you an email in the next day or two with a PDF of today's presentation, as well as a link to the recording of this webinar. You'll also be able to find a recording to this webinar, as well as any previous webinars that we've recorded, under the Media Center tab on our website. Additionally, we want to invite any of you who are planning to attend this year's FabTech conference in Atlanta in the United States to visit us at booth number 2525. So we hope you found today's webinar helpful, and we look forward to providing you with solutions in the future. Have a great day, everyone.